Hey YouTube friends, Mealybugs, Thrips, let me think, spider mites, scale, and powdery mildew. I don't know that I've ever had this smorgasbord of pests in my collection all at one time, ever before. It has been a roller coaster of pests for the last few weeks. It feels like a funny time of the year for that to happen because I'm in southeast Queensland, so we are in autumn at the moment. Usually here for me in Brizzy, summer is hands down the worst time for pests. But I think this summer, because it was so hot, February was just disgusting. If you remember, we had those heat wave conditions. So it's like my plants have taken a deep breath, and so too have the pests because they are out in full force. And so that is what today's video is all about. Although I'm absolutely far from an expert, I wanted to talk you through all the different pests that I've had on my plants, what they look like, so how I spotted them, and also how I treat them. When I mentioned my pest smorgasbord in Plant Club last weekend, it was just such an animated conversation that I couldn't help myself. I just had to make this video for you because I know as plant parents, it is just something that we are super, super passionate about. So I can't wait to talk to you guys today about how I'm getting my plants back to some sort of healthy and recovering from that massive onslaught of pests that we've had just in time for the cooler weather to hit. It well and truly doesn't feel like we're anywhere near close to winter at the moment, but here's hoping that the cooler weather is just around the corner for us. And just quickly, if we haven't met before, hey, I'm Mel. A few years ago, after some medical complications, I found myself needing to retire from a career that I absolutely loved and spending most of my days at home. It was in my early adjustment phases where I discovered my love of houseplants, which has now turned into an absolute complete passion of mine. Once I got over my initial fear of killing plants, I began researching and experimenting. Fast forward to today, and I'm proud plant mum to over 150 plants. And this channel is all about bringing you along on my planty journey, mistakes and all, and giving you a bucket load of tips and tricks along the way so that hopefully you can bring some more greenery and calm into your home as well. So grab yourself a warm drink, get comfy, and let's talk about plants. I just noticed in my viewfinder, I cannot apologize enough for the state of my mouth. I'm recovering from 5 cold sores. I know, 5, right? Sometimes people find cold sores hard to look at, and I totally get that. I did actually wait for a few days to film this video so they didn't look so terrible. And I some moisturizing lip balm over the top of them as well, just to try and make them not look so bad for you guys. But this is about as good as it gets at the moment, guys. So massive apologies if you're having trouble looking at me through the screen, but it's going to take a good week. It's been a few days already, and I find once I've had a breakout of cold sores like this, it's going to be at least another week. But hopefully you guys are not here to look at my cold sores. Let's talk about pests, because once you've got a few plants in your collection, I think it's just inevitable that eventually you're going to get pests in your collection. Pests are just part of owning plants, unfortunately. As a new plant parent quite a few years ago, I still vividly remember the day that my very first plant got mealybugs. I was absolutely horrified. I don't know about you, but mealybugs really do give me the icks, although over the years, I sort of have got used to them because they probably are the most common pests that I get in my collection. But I still remember it was a chili plant that I had out in my veggie garden, and it was absolutely covered. I'm happy to say that I was able to revive it, surprisingly. As I said, very new plant parent at the time. Had to look up on ChatGPT to confirm that they actually were mealybugs because I've never seen them before. I think I've told you guys before, I'm really into proactively hosing my plants. At that time, I was able to hose them every week when I watered. So it was a really good way to keep the pests away. As my collection grew, the inevitable happened, and of course I started getting pests. So mealybugs were the first pests that I ever had. So let's start with mealybugs over the last few weeks. I'll have to B-roll this one, guys, because it's my big trough planter that I've got on the front patio. As you're hopefully seeing from the B-roll, I've got Ficus taniki in there, my beautiful Ficus taniki that I just absolutely adore. And I've got the Syngoniums growing in around the bottom. And I've joked on this channel so many times before, but Syngoniums for me just seem to be pest magnets. So the Syngoniums that are growing around the bottom pretty constantly have mealybugs on them. Likewise, the Ficus taniki always seems to be prone to them as well. So not surprisingly, a few weeks ago, my husband has just put up, which hopefully you're also seeing in the B-roll, this awesome trellis for me for the Syngonium to go up. I'm out there admiring the trellis, and sure enough, the white flecks catch my eye. I'm like, oh, they're back again. And truly, when I say again, I think because it's quite dense, the planting, and I've got quite a few plants in there, I think even when I can't see the mealybugs, I think there's probably just a small amount of them there at any one time, and it's just when their population gets bigger that I actually see them, and then I treat them, and it's just a cycle. But as long as I stay on top of it, I found it doesn't impact the health of the plant. Let's have a look here. I don't think I've taken photos of mealies because they're just something I deal with all the time, but Regardless, I'm going to put a photo up here, whether it's mine or from the internet, to show you what you're looking at when I speak about mealies, for anyone who hasn't had the joy of seeing those little white fluffy clouds that we get on our leaves, so up here, and how I treat them. So the first thing I do, particularly for the planter that's out on my front patio, if I see mealies on a plant, I get the hose. I find that hosing down plants is really good proactively to keep the pests off, just literally washing them away, but also keeping the plants healthy by getting rid of the dust on their leaves. And then once that's dried, I give it a really good soak with We the Wild Protect spray. I'll put a photo up here for you guys of the We the Wild Protect spray. It's basically neem oil, but they've got some essential oils in there from memory as well that makes it smell quite pleasant. So I'll drown the plants with neem oil. 2 or 3 days after that, I'll go back and I'll have a look at the plant. That's usually got rid of most of the mealybugs. And then I'll dab, I usually just get a cotton bud and dab isopropyl alcohol on any of the remaining mealybugs that are there. And usually within 2 or 3 weeks, if I caught it early, I've got rid of all of the mealybugs. When I was talking about mealybugs at Plant Club, one of my beautiful planty friends, she's super busy and doesn't have time to do the individual dabs with the cotton bud. So she makes up a great solution. I'll make sure I put the strengths up here for you guys because I can't remember the exact ratio. But she does a water, isopropyl alcohol, and just a drop of dishwashing liquid in her solution, and she sprays the plant and leaves it on for an hour before she washes it off. And I guess why the importance of isopropyl alcohol when it comes to mealybugs, but also for scale and spider mites, you want to break down that outer skeleton on the pest to make sure that the pest control treatment is actually working. So I think from memory, the next lot of pests that I saw was spider mites on this guy. I don't know if you remember, a few weeks ago in one of my favorites videos, I was talking to you guys about this plant and I not being besties at all. We've had some moments and it was finally coming good. The last leaf, which is not this leaf, I had to cut it off, was actually bigger than my hand. And I was so excited because it has been a battle. It has been in the 2-leaf club for a very long time. The good news is it does look like it's pushing out another leaf, but it actually had 4 beautiful leaves on it. The last leaf that came out was bigger than this, if you can imagine it, and it was just looking lovely. I was outside watering some plants. I looked and it's got 2 yellow leaves, not just one, and one of the yellow leaves is the new big leaf. Something's not right here. So I grabbed my glasses and I went over and had a closer look, and as I picked up the plant, see how it's got the gap in the leaf there? I picked it up and the sun was shining through and I could just see the finest web on it, and I thought, I know exactly what I'm about to see in the underside of the leaf. I've learnt with spider mites, so sure enough, it was spider mites. And I don't know if you guys have had the same experience with them, but I find that they seem to like hanging out on the underside of the leaf more than the top of the leaf. So the top of the leaf was yellow, but had the web not been across that top bit of the leaf, I think it would have been less obvious for me, because it wasn't until I looked underneath and I could just see the webs and the little spiders and ugh, yuck. So here's what I did. I had an elephant ears plant that was super prone to spider mites. It's the first plant I had in my collection that just got spider mites over and over again. So I guess I got to practice on my elephant ear plant, which I've now given to a friend because it was just quite the diva, I have to say. People think Peasel is a diva. This thing was an absolute diva, and I didn't have the patience for it. But it did give me practice on treating spider mite. First thing always, actually, sorry, I forgot to mention, because my trough plant out the front is so big, I can't move it away from other plants. But what I do is move my other plants away from it. But this guy's smaller, so I just isolate it from the other plants. I instantly just cut off the 2 leaves. It felt like it happened overnight, but it probably didn't. It probably was over a few days, and because this guy was outside, I guess I missed it. But if an infestation of any pest is bad, I just straight away cut off the worst leaves because it was so damaged and yellow anyway. I'm hoping that I've got some photos for you guys, but because this was at the start of the pest infestation, I'm not sure. If I don't have photos of this, I'll definitely put some photos up here for you guys so you know what to look for if you haven't been lucky enough to have spider mites yet. But anyway, I cut off the 2 leaves, drowned it in We the Wild Protect, and then just over the next few weeks, I was making sure that I was hosing it, and once a week doing the We the Wild Protect. I did that for about 3 weeks, and touch wood, I haven't seen another spider mite on this plant, and also touch wood, the spider mites didn't seem to have spread into any of my other plants, so I must have caught it early enough. Because this is out in my back area on my patio in amongst a whole heap of other plants, I did proactively spray everything. I mean, I hose them once a week anyway, so that's an easy thing to do, but I just gave them an extra long hose, like they were getting a real torrential downpour in the back area. And then I went through and I We the Wild sprayed all of them as well. And I did that 2 weeks in a row, and that seems to have helped. Thank goodness, because I've got so many plants close together out there. It could have been a complete disaster for sure. So that is my Amazonica. We may or may not be becoming friends. I haven't decided yet. So we've had mealybugs and we've had spider mites. And now here comes some powdery mildew. That was next. So I was really surprised to be talking to you guys about powdery mildew. It's a plant disease that I just haven't had for quite a long time. It was definitely something that I struggled with quite a bit, particularly because here in Brizzy, it can get quite humid in summer, lots of rain. I was getting powdery mildew on a lot of my plants, but now that I have my DIY chunky mix, and I would say I'm more of an underwaterer these days, it just hasn't been something that I struggle with, thank goodness. So I was really surprised a few weeks ago when I walked out our front door. For anyone who's been on this channel for a little while, you would remember my jade plant at the front door that has shown up in many of my Halloween and Christmas videos. It flopped. I didn't know a jade plant could do this, but it was like it was doing peacefully. And I looked at it and went, what's going on with that plant? And when I looked closely, it was covered in powdery mildew. And I thought, that is so strange. And I was trying to think what could have caused it, because that jade plant had lived on our front balcony for years and years. It is one of the OG plants in my collection, and I'd grown it from a tiny little $5 plant from a big box store. So I have to say it was a bit sentimental. And also, don't they say in feng shui that it's good vibes for your house to have one at your front door? I think that's why I put one at the front door in the first place. But anyway, when I pulled it out of its pot, I couldn't actually save it. It was so root rotted. There was barely any roots left. It literally was floppy when I touched it. And then when I investigated further, I had forgotten that it had one of my very original soil mixes in it when I first started experimenting. And it was just cocoa coir fiber and perlite. And it was before I realized that there were different sorts of perlite. So I just bought very fine perlite from Bunnings. And good news though, guys, Bunnings, for anyone here in Australia, Bunnings do now sell chunky perlite, but at the time they only had the fine. Although I was letting the top few centimeters of the soil dry out before I was watering it, down the bottom was just a soggy mess. It was terrible. I felt so bad for the jade plant. I took a few of the newer clippings from the end, hoping that I might be able to save it, but within a week or two, they had died as well. So unfortunately, my beautiful jade plant that has been on our front patio for years and years is now in the compost bin, and it will be food for some of my other plants. If there's any silver lining at all, I did have a peperomia that I was gifted that I actually really, really love. And it was homeless for a little while. It was one of those plants that I kept moving around the house. I wasn't sure where to put it. It has fitted perfectly in that pot, and I think it looks quite nice, and it just feels very similar to the jade plant there. So very sad to lose the jade plant because I'd had it for so long, but nice, I guess, to give the peperomia a new home. I'll make sure I put some photos of the jade plant, but also the peperomia up there for you guys, particularly if you don't live in a humid environment or you haven't ever overwatered your plants like I used to. I'll make sure I put some photos of the powdery mildew up there as well. I was really good at giving my plants powdery mildew when I first started. Ways to prevent powdery mildew is making sure the plants have enough airflow and making sure their roots aren't getting too soggy, they're not getting overwatered. If you do get a mild breakout, the way that I was treating it is weed the wild first, so always proactively weed the wild. But I do have a Yates product, absolutely not sponsored, it's just something that Bunnings sells, and I'll make sure I put a picture up here. I hated using it, but it was a fungicide, a copper-based fungicide from memory, and it does really well with your black and your brown spot fungus on plants, but also the powdery mildew as well. So I always keep some of that on hand, and I hadn't had to use it for a very long time. But the poor jade plant was well and truly past that. It was covered. And seriously, I think it's one of those things, hiding in plain sight, because it's something that I walked past every day. And the plant was looking so healthy. It probably had the powdery mildew for quite a while, but it wasn't until it did the big flop that I sort of turned and noticed the plant. So a little hard not to feel guilty. So what happened next? So we've done mealybugs, we've done spider mites, we've done powdery mildew, scale. Scale was the next one. Let's talk about scale. Before we talk about plants, I just have to show you, Diesel loves when we film in here. He just makes himself so comfortable. I don't even know why I make the bed anymore, because I've heard Wild Fern call them nesties, as in, the animals move the pillows and blankets around until they're comfortable, and that's exactly what Diesel does to our bed. But check this out, he's so cute. Can you see past the cushion? So cute. Hey Deez. That is one comfortable dog. I don't know why I bother making the bed, because he just makes himself at home. And you should see when Daisy does the same thing. There's just pillows and cushions everywhere. But let's talk about scale. So this cactus, this is my new booby cactus that I got just before we went to Japan, and it was one of those plants that I never knew I needed until I saw it in real life. I'd heard so many Planty creators talk about these online. I thought, what is so good about a baby cactus? But you know what? It was another really cool backyard nursery that's just near our local supermarket, and I spotted it from way across the nursery, and I was like, okay, now I get it, because I need one of these. So this was $10, guys, which I love finding local backyard nurseries. It is just such a unique plant. I absolutely see why everyone loves it. It was living under our macadamia nut tree because it gets lots and lots of beautiful bright light out there. And the first thing that caught my eye, can you guys see how it's leaning? I realized it wasn't quite getting enough light because that was the way the light is coming from. So it was leaning towards the light. So that's actually what caught my eye. And I thought, oh, I must move that into another location to give it some better light. But when I got up closer, it was covered in dots. I know that some cactuses produce residues, I guess, that they put on the outside of themselves to protect themselves from the sun, but I thought it doesn't look like that. So I took some photos, put it into ChatGPT, which is a good thing because I'm sure I've still got those photos to show you guys, which if I do, I'll put them up here. And I said to Chat, what is going on with my new baby cactus? And it said, randomly, it has cactus scale. I've definitely never experienced cactus or succulent scale before. That was definitely a first for me. So the internet told me to get a toothbrush and scrub it. You know, scale is they just latch on. They're really hard to get off. And because see how it's got little fine crevices, I thought, how am I ever going to get in there and clean that off? I hosed it down, I Wee the Wild, sprayed it. That is just my standard response, which is neem oil. Waited for the day, but then I got my friend spray, which is the water, the isopropyl alcohol, and a little bit of detergent. And I put it in a container and I used the toothbrush, and I absolutely covered it in that, which will break the exoskeleton of the scale. Let that sit for an hour and then hosed it off. And I did that twice. I used that spray twice within a week period, giving it a few days rest in between, making sure I hose it down. And then I've not long given it another spray with neem oil, and I'm just keeping an eye on it, but also touch wood, it's looking okay. Once again, keeping it separate from my other plants. You should see, guys, actually, because I brought them in here. I brought them into the bedroom to do this video, and I've got them spaced out like all over the room, so they're not touching any of my other plants. I've still got them close to these plants, but I've only got so much space. So I'm just sort of making sure none of my plants are touching these at the moment. Uh-oh, Daisy's just discovered us. Hey girl, just careful, there's plants there. Come around. Daisy, come and say hello. Daisy, can you fit? I've just got to go and rescue Daisy. I think she's about to knock my Syngoniums over. I'll be back in a sec. Daisy's joining us now as well, guys. Hello, young girl. Oh, you're so cute. Good girl. You say hello to everyone? You couldn't get past the Syngoniums. I know, they were in your way. Good girl. Double dog trouble. But I think we're finished with this one anyway, guys. I'm pretty confident that I've got the scale under control. I'll just keep an eye on it over the next few weeks. Probably do one more preventative spray, and that'll make 3, as well as that isopropyl alcohol water detergent mix. And I guess then I'll be confident to find another home for it. I'm thinking maybe inside under one of the grow lights, because in winter our backyard gets less light, and underneath the macadamia nut tree is normally a really lovely bright spot for us, but it's obviously not quite enough for this guy. Here comes Ninja. He kicked Diesel off the bed, but Daisy and Ninja are friends, so it should be okay. Hey Ninja, you're naughty. You kicked Diesel off. That was a bit mean, wasn't it? Yeah, you're a bit mean at times. We've got the whole gang in here with us. Did you get kicked off, buddy? It's okay, you can hang with us. I have so many pink Syngonium, different types of pink Syngonium. I'm always joking to you guys, if I'm going to get pests in my collection, it's usually going to be my pink Syngoniums. I don't know why. Let me know if you guys have the same thing. I don't know what it is about pink variegated Syngoniums, but for me, in my collection, they're the ones that are going to get the pest first. So I wasn't surprised. So this was a propagation that I got from one of my plant club friends, and I grew it up into quite a big plant, and I decided I was going to take it outside and split it to take to plant club. And as I was splitting it, I'm like, some of those leaves aren't forming properly. And sure enough, put my glasses on, have a closer look, and we've got scale. More scale. So I'm dealing with scale from my cactus, which is beside me, and now I've got scale on 2 of my Syngoniums. I don't know about you, but I've never had scale on my Syngoniums before. By this time, I had discovered the spray that my friend had talked to me about. I still split them in 2, so the other one looks exactly the same as this one. Gave it a good hose to try and get as much off as I could, although with scale, I don't usually have much luck. I think I used the isopropyl alcohol spray first because I just knew dealing with scale, that exoskeleton is very, very hard and stubborn. So I used that spray twice. So sprayed it on, waited an hour, hosed it off, and then I did that again a week later. And now I've proactively sprayed with the neem oil spray. And also touch wood, I've touched wood a lot in this video, they're looking okay. So still keeping it separate to my other plant club propagations, and certainly didn't take it to this plant club. Might take it to May's, but I'll just see how it goes. But actually, I just realized I'm saying the same thing over and over again, guys. There's so many other ways to treat pests. I am absolutely not an expert. I know lots of people love that insecticidal soap that you can make up, but also the other thing that I hear a lot of Planty creators say is those beneficial bugs. I had a really good talk to that lovely lady that owns the nursery where I bought my snake plants from last weekend, and she's just started introducing beneficial bugs and said she's having all sorts of success with it. So yeah, please don't think that the solutions that I'm talking about are the only way to treat pests, because it's absolutely not. I think that the key thing is definitely if you can rinse your plants down. For me, it's about once a month, but definitely when I was doing it more often, I had heaps less pests than I do now. And it also keeps the dust off the leaves, so it helps them photosynthesize and grow more. So definitely spraying your plants down when you can, and using some sort of preventative once a month seems to work really, really well for me. And also keeping plants separate. So as soon as I see a problem plant, if possible, separating them from my collection. And then the other thing I've learned is if a leaf is really infested, don't hesitate to cut it off. I used to feel so bad cutting the leaves off that were infected, and now I absolutely do not hesitate. I can be brutal, guys. And the last two plants that I've got to show you, I actually was quite brutal with those ones. I'll go and grab the other Syngonium that should have been before this one, and then we'll finish on a fern. So the next plant that I had to show you is actually an assortment, a mix, and it's not looking very pretty at the moment, guys. So there is 3 different pink variegated Syngoniums in here, and one of them actually I showed you in my favorites video. They are quite pretty, the colors. I'm trying to consolidate my collection and be a bit more mindful with the number of plants that I have, and I thought they'll make a fantastic mixed pot. So I grabbed the 3 plants and went to take them outside to pot them up together. A really small amount of movement caught my eye, so I took it outside, put my glasses on, and had a really good look at the leaf, the underneath of the leaf. It just had all of these, you guys probably know where I'm going with this, all of these little brown specks all over the bottom of the leaves, all of the leaves basically. They were moving. I thought mealybugs were gross. Thrips are so much worse. And as soon as I saw them, as soon as I put my glasses on, I thought, I know exactly what you are. I'm gonna have to put that down because that's heavy. So they looked like little brown specks, and it didn't get any better when I put my glasses on. It looked worse actually, because they sucked the goodness out of the leaf, and so they were leaving those little silverish sort of trails on the leaf as well. So I took some photos. So hopefully I've still got those photos. I'll definitely put them up here because I think it's just really helpful to know what you're looking for. And by all accounts, according to the research, it depends on the life cycle stage that they're at. Thrips can be a few different colors. So by all accounts, the younger thrips, like more of the larva, can be the lighter color, whereas I saw a light brown color, so it was more mature, but also depending on the species. Anyway, the most important thing was they were little flecks and they were moving. They were very obviously moving and leaving trails of destruction across the leaves. So had the infestation, that's a hard word to say, been less, so not like all over my plants, I would have treated it similar to how I treated the scale. So I would have taken it out in the yard, hosed it down, used the isopropyl alcohol water detergent spray. The plant was covered. And as I said in my last video, not only have I been dealing with this, but I'm in boy mum mode at the moment with both of my children with sporting injuries, one needing surgery, one, thank goodness, touch wood, didn't need surgery. I was just like, I don't have the energy to fight an unknown pest, something that I'm less familiar with. And particularly when it was so bad, it was over so much of the plant. And I also know how quickly they can spread. So I took them out of the room. They were in my propagation room, so close to so many of my plants. Thank goodness I checked the room afterwards. I took all the plants outside that were in the propagation room, hosed them down with a wild spray all over them, and I haven't to date seen thrips on any of my other plants. So I'm just hoping that I did catch them in time. I will keep a really close watch on my propagation room for the next few weeks, but it is at the moment looking okay, thank goodness. So I just got these, took some photos, confirmed, yes, it's thrips, and I cut off all the leaves. I put the leaves into the compost bin and closed it. We've got 3 compost bins here at home. So I put the leaves into the compost bin that is fully sealed and dark. So I'm hoping that the thrips will just die for me in there and not contaminate some of my other compost that might be going overboard, but I thought I can't be too careful. And then use the spray, so the isopropyl water detergent spray on this. I've used it a few times, so let it sit for an hour, wash it off. I've done that twice, and now I'm at the stage where I'm just using the We the Wild spray on it, keeping them separate, obviously, and giving them a good hose once a week as well. And already they've got little leaves growing. So I have had to do this to Syngoniums before, because as I said, it just seems to be, if a plant's going to have pests, I'm not surprised that these were my first thrips. It's just pink Syngoniums. So I'm fairly confident that they should come back for me. This is where I love the comments, guys. If you've had a less severe infestation, I'm really struggling with that word today. What are some of the methods you've used to treat thrips? I believe a lot of people swear by those predatory mites, predatory bugs when it comes to thrips, but it'd be really cool to let others know how you treat them. I feel like that's a bit of a plant parent rite of passage. I sort of almost felt a little bit guilty when many Planty creators talking about thrips outbreaks, and I thought of all the pests, it's one that I hadn't had before in my collection. So I sort of feel like it's been a bit of I feel like it's a bit of a rite of passage for me now. I can say, yep, tick, had thrips in my collection. And I think I dealt with them. We're a few weeks past now, and the plants seem to be going okay. And it seems like none of my other plants have got it. According to the internet, the life cycle is 3 weeks, and we're past that now. I will just keep watching the rest of my collection, particularly in the propagation room, just to make sure. We've got one more plant to go, guys. And this one probably surprised me the most out of all my plants when it happened. So now the cat fully has the bed to himself, and the dogs have had to move. I just love how such a small animal can be so bossy to such big dogs. We just adore that cat. You guys know that Ninja was actually dumped in our front yard as a kitten. We are such a dog family here, and I would never ever have thought that I would have a cat. But this guy got dumped in our front yard. He was less than a kilo. He was like 900 grams. I just heard this meowing in the middle of the night one night, and I opened the door and he came flying in. He was skin and bones. He was starving. He was cold. It was the middle of winter. He wasn't microchipped. I went out to lots of the local vets and rescue places, and they basically said he's in such poor condition, he probably was dumped and he's chosen you guys. So you either need to keep him or take him to a rescue. And there was no way we were going to give him to a rescue. So that is how we ended up with our beautiful Ninja cat, who now bosses the dogs around and runs a house. Love this cat. And David said that he has catitude, and I don't disagree. Anyway, we better get back to the plants. If you've been on this channel for a little while, you might recognize this one sad leaf as my beautiful rabbit's foot fern, which has been in so many of my favorites videos. I couldn't believe it, guys. You know how you sort of look at something and then go, no, that can't be right. Grabbed my glasses and had a close look, and scale. Out of all of my collection, I have never ever had scale on ferns before. Usually for me, my Hoya carnosa is just a plant, just like the mealybugs on our front patio. It just seems to get scale regularly. So I'm used to dealing with that, but dealing with it on a fern, that was a whole other thing. And because the rabbit foot leaves are so delicate, there was no way I was going to scrub them or get a cotton bud. So I cut them off. And that hurt because I love this plant so much. So I didn't cut the leaves off straight away. So obviously I took it off the side table away from the other plants, hosed it, tried the isopropyl spray twice, but they were latched on. Even when they were dead from the spray, I could not get them off. So I just cut them. I've used the spray again, given it a nice hose, some We the Wild. It looks like I've got it all, but I really won't know until it starts growing some new leaves. So for now, I've got it segregated away from the other plants. I just hope, even though we're going into the cooler weather, our winters aren't that harsh here in Brizzy. Hopefully it'll still grow some nice new leaves for me. Hopefully it's not going to be a recurring thing on this plant, just because the fronds are just so delicate. I just don't know how you would clean them off properly. If you've also had scale on ferns before, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know if you've got a gentle way of getting rid of scale off fern leaves, or any plants actually that have delicate leaves, because that is definitely something that I don't have down pat. So my Hoya carnosa, it's pretty hardy. I'll just use a toothbrush or some paper towel and wipe it off. I've used the isopropyl alcohol, but it just doesn't work the same on a fern. I think the recent pest outbreak has got a lot to do with our recent weather that we had, but also as my collection grows and as life happens, I'm not being as good taking my plants outside and hosing them. If you guys remember, I was in a moon boot with a broken foot for a good 6 or 7 weeks, and so I haven't been running my plants out into the rain, and I haven't been taking them out and hosing them, and I think that potentially has led to the pests as well, because there was just no proactive spraying of any of my plants at all. So moon boots off, so I'll be able to start doing that again. So I feel like I've been a little sidetracked and rambly in this video, guys, but I still hope you've managed to pick up a few pest tips along the way. But I think most importantly too, just realizing that it is so normal to get pests as part of being a plant parent, and that there's so many different ways that you can treat pests. Sometimes the pest will win and you'll need to compost that plant, and that's okay too, because it's all part of the learning. So out of all of those plants that I told you guys today, it was only the jade plant that I'd let go way too far with the powdery mildew that I actually had to compost, but the rest of my plants are going okay. So hopefully that can show you some real life examples of dealing with pests in our plant collection. I stopped counting at 150. I don't actually know how many plants I have these days. Thank you so much for putting up with my cold sores. Hopefully next week will be so much better again. I've got about 3 different video ideas lined up for you guys next week, and I haven't decided which one of them I'm going to make, so I'll have to have a little bit of a think before then. Until my next video, I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful and planty week, whatever you're doing. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in my next video.